The lockbox was cold against my thighs as I sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor. I held it there longer than I needed to, like the weight might give up some hint before I opened it. Behind me, her closet still smelled faintly like cinnamon gum and whatever perfume she'd sprayed on bills before filing them away. A weird habit, but one of the few things she did for herself. The key had been taped to the back of her favorite photo frame. I don't think she ever meant for me to find it. I should start by saying I wasn't snooping. Not exactly. It was 2 weeks after the funeral. The house still didn't feel like mine, even though the lawyer had handed me the deed with that tired, practiced sympathy he probably used a dozen times a month. My mom's house now. My house now. Same walls, different silence. I'd been putting it off. The room clearing, the decision-making, the awful practicality of figuring out what to keep and what to donate. It felt like taking inventory of her life, but with a clipboard I didn't ask to hold. The lockbox was in the bottom of her closet, under a stack of winter blankets she hadn't used in years. Inside were three things: a small leather-bound planner from 2007 with check marks in every margin, an old Polaroid of me in my cap and gown, high school graduation, blurry and bent at the corner, an envelope marked, in her handwriting, Rainy Day Fund. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured it would be $20, maybe a couple hundred in emergency cash. My mom was frugal, always had been, used coupons like a sport, kept all her change in washed-out peanut butter jars. But the envelope was thick, heavier than it should have been. I opened it on instinct. What else do you do with an envelope that feels like it's humming in your hand? It was filled with money, crisp bills, mostly hundreds, counted out and labeled in pencil on the inside flap. 28,430, tuition, rainy day. I sat back, like the number had pushed me. The carpet itched under my legs, but I couldn't move. I hadn't gone to college, not because I didn't want to, because she said we couldn't afford it. I can still hear her voice the night I got accepted. It was late, nearly midnight. I'd waited until then to tell her, because I'd been too nervous to open the email earlier. I thought if I waited, maybe the news would be good enough to carry us both. I stood at the kitchen doorway with my acceptance letter printed out, folded once like I had to keep it small, or it'd slip away. She was sitting at the table with her reading glasses pushed to the end of her nose, sorting through mail, cutting coupons, circling dates on a desk calendar like she did every Friday night. "Mom," I said. She looked up, half distracted. "What's up, baby?" I held the letter out. "I got in." It took her a beat to understand. Then her face did this weird shift, half pride, half panic, to, "Where?" she asked. "State." Another pause. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful, but..." And I already knew the but. We had savings, or so I thought. At least, I'd always been told to work hard, keep my grades up, apply for scholarships. My part-time job at the hardware store went straight into a joint account we opened for my future. I thought we were in it together. But that night, she told me the account had been drained last year. Medical bills, roof repairs, Uncle Ray's bail, life things. I didn't ask for proof. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? And now here I was, 28 grand in cash, in a house that felt like a stranger's with furniture I couldn't rearrange without guilt. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept the envelope in the lockbox, returned it exactly where I found it, and sat up watching reruns of sitcoms on mute. My mind kept circling the same questions like a vulture. Why didn't she tell me? When did she pull this together? Why keep it after everything? I didn't open the planner until morning. It wasn't even mine, not originally. It had her name written on the inside flap in faded ink, Tina H., 2007. That was the year I started high school. The first entry, goal, save $100 a month. Jay's future. Jay was me, Julian. Each month had dollar amounts, side hustles, overtime hours, cash from babysitting neighbors' kids, from cleaning houses on Sundays, from the envelope her boss gave her under the table at holiday season. It wasn't just savings, it was sacrifice. She didn't just plan for my future, she fought for it. And then she didn't spend it. That was the worst part. Not that she lied, not even that I'd spent the past 6 years floating between warehouse jobs, working side gigs, watching old friends become nurses, teachers, engineers, while I learned to change oil and rotate tires at a strip mall mechanic joint. The worst part was that she had enough. She had enough, and she didn't use it. She let me believe the door was closed when she had the key in her drawer the whole time. I finally brought it up with my aunt a few days later. She came by to help sort the last of Mom's things. We were boxing up kitchenware when I asked, trying to sound casual, "Did Mom ever say anything about a college fund?" My aunt froze halfway through wrapping a ceramic mug. "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering." She tilted her head. "She said she was trying. Said she felt bad she couldn't help more." I nodded, waited. She didn't add anything. I tried again. "Did she tell you about the envelope?" This time her eyes snapped up. "What envelope, Tito?" I told her. She sat down hard on the kitchen stool and blinked at me. "You found it?" she whispered. "She kept it all this time?" I nodded. My aunt pressed her lips together. "She told me once, after your graduation. She said she couldn't bring herself to touch it, that it was supposed to be for your future, and that if she spent it, it'd be like robbing the version of you she believed in." I didn't know whether to be touched or furious. I didn't even know what I wanted to do with the money. 6 years too late. A decade of dreams rerouted. Relationships strained. Confidence chipped away by every job rejection where I didn't have a degree. Every time I couldn't even apply because the first line of the form asked about college. My girlfriend at the time, she tried. She said it didn't matter, that she loved how hard I worked, that being book smart wasn't everything. But every fight ended with me going quiet and her walking away like she was tired of carrying a weight I wouldn't name. I never told her the real reason I never went. Now, I didn't know if that was loyalty or cowardice. I stared at the envelope again the next morning. This time I counted the bills, one by one. $28,430.20. The 20 cents were in a small Ziploc bag tucked in the back. 2 dimes, tarnished with age. There was a note folded behind them, written on a receipt from a diner we used to go to. "Just in case you want to buy a coffee before class. Love, Mom." I had to sit down. Again. That was the first time I cried. Not for the money, not for the lie, for the coffee. The next few days felt like I was watching someone else live my life. I'd get up, make toast, flip through the channels without watching anything, walk past the lockbox like it wasn't whispering at me. Then I'd go to bed and lie awake wondering if I was supposed to feel more grateful, angry, motivated, hollow. The thing about finding money you thought never existed, money meant for a life you never lived, is that it makes everything real and meaningless at the same time. That Ziploc bag with the 20 cents? It sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days, like a monument to the timeline I missed. I didn't touch it. I didn't even move it to the side when I chopped vegetables or reached for coffee filters. I just worked around it like a ghost. I finally called Marcus on Friday. He was one of the last people from high school I still spoke to regularly. We'd taken woodshop together, back when we thought building things with your hands was just something to kill time before lunch. Now, he owned his own small contracting company, had a kid, a second one on the way, and had just put a down payment on a fixer-upper outside town. And me? I was still renting month to month in a converted garage behind someone else's real house. He picked up on the second ring. "Jules?" "Yeah." You good? I wasn't. But I said, yeah, you busy? Nah, just putting together a sandbox. Sophie says it's so the baby can practice dirt, whatever that means. I laughed, the first real one in days. Hey, listen, can I ask you something kind of weird? Sure. If your mom had lied about being broke, but actually had money saved for you, like a lot, and you found it after she died, would that mess with your head? There was a long pause. You found something? I told him. Not everything. Just enough to paint the outline. When I finished, Marcus exhaled. Jesus, man. Yeah. She really never said anything? Not a word. Another beat. Then, okay, I gotta ask, what are you gonna do with it? That question hung in the air like static. What was I going to do with it? Go back to school? At 25, I couldn't even remember how to write a proper essay. My last academic milestone was a high school diploma that looked more like a participation trophy the older I got. Use it for a certification program? Maybe. But for what? Most trade certifications were cheaper. I could technically afford them now, but would they fix what I'd lost? Pay off debts? That'd be practical, sure. Except I'd kept myself debt-free out of necessity. Couldn't afford loans, didn't qualify for credit, didn't take risks. The money just sat there, untouched, unassigned, like it was waiting for a decision I didn't feel worthy of making. On Sunday, I drove to the old neighborhood. I hadn't been back since Mom's stroke. After the hospital stays and the hospice discussions, it didn't feel like a place for memories anymore. It felt like a museum of should-haves. The street still had the same cracked sidewalks, the same chain-link fences, the same weedy corners where kids used to wait for the ice cream truck. Nothing had changed, which honestly kind of hurt more. I parked in front of our old duplex and just sat there. Windows up, engine off. The upstairs tenant was still there. A retired vet named Mr. Dawes, who used to give me red licorice whenever I helped carry his groceries. I saw him step out to get the mail, a little slower now, but still upright. Still with that blue Dodgers cap he wore rain or shine. And then I noticed the for sale sign in the lawn across the street. I didn't even think. I got out, walked up, snapped a picture of the realtor's number. Not because I wanted the house, but because something about seeing a sign that blunt made everything inside me itch. I needed to do something. That night, I opened a new browser tab, typed in community college enrollment deadlines, then deleted the tab, opened a new one, typed in best vocational training programs 2025, deleted that one too. I wasn't afraid of learning. I was afraid that it wouldn't change anything, that I'd do all of it and still end up stuck where I was, just older and poorer by whatever tuition I spent. So I did what I hadn't done in a long time. I opened my email and searched for the counselor who'd helped me apply to colleges all those years ago. Mrs. Landry. She was probably retired, maybe dead. But I found her name listed as Emeritus Advisor on the State High website. Same school, same office, same hope. So I wrote, subject, this might be weird, but you helped me once. Hi, Mrs. Landry. I'm not sure if you remember me. I'm Julian Hart. You helped me with my college application back in 2017. I didn't end up going. Life stuff. But I recently found something my mom left behind, and I guess it stirred some things up. I was wondering if we could talk. Not about a specific program or school, just about options. I know I'm late to the game, but I think I want to do something different. Thank you, Julian. I stared at it for 20 minutes before I hit send. Then I shut the laptop and went for a walk. The neighborhood looked different on foot, quieter, less familiar, but in the way where you start noticing details you used to miss. The the shape of the gutters, the smell of old brick, the mailboxes that never got repainted. I passed by the elementary school where Mom used to wait outside in her beat-up Saturn, windows down, yelling out the same joke every time I climbed in. Did you learn anything important or just where to find the bathroom? I used to roll my eyes. Now I'd pay anything to hear it again. When I got back, I had an email from Mrs. Landry. Subject: Of course I remember you, Julian. You were one of the brightest students I worked with, and one of the most determined. I don't know what life threw at you, but I'm glad you reached out. Let's talk. I can set up a Zoom this week. No pressure, no expectations, just options. And for what it's worth, it's never too late. With care, Mrs. L. I didn't cry that time, but I did close my eyes and sit very still for a long time. Then I stood up, walked to the kitchen, picked up the Ziploc bag with the 20 cents, and slid it into my wallet. Not because I needed the money, because for the first time, I felt like maybe I could be the version of myself she'd saved it for. The Zoom call with Mrs. Landry was set for Tuesday evening at 6. I spent most of that day tidying up the front room, like she'd somehow be able to see through the screen and judge the stack of laundry on my couch. I even moved the envelope, into my desk drawer, though I kept my wallet with the 20-cent Ziploc in my back pocket. Not for luck, not for symbolism. I just didn't want to be without it. By 5:50, I was sitting upright at my kitchen table, laptop open, webcam checked, mic tested. You'd think I was prepping for a job interview, not a casual catch-up with a retired high school counselor. Still, I hadn't felt that kind of nervous since, I don't know, maybe my driving test. The screen flickered to life at exactly 6. Julian! Mrs. Landry's face appeared. Older, softer, hair a little grayer, but still with that same kind, alert expression she always had when someone was about to say something important. Hi, I said, and immediately felt 12 again. She smiled. Look at you, all grown up. Trying to be. Trying's enough for today. We talked for almost 2 hours. She didn't push, didn't prod, just listened. I told her what had happened. Not the whole emotional blow by blow, but enough for her to understand the weight of the envelope, the meaning of what it held. She nodded slowly, as if she'd heard versions of this story before. Maybe she had. What I'm hearing, she said gently, is that you're still grieving. For your mom, yes, but also for the path you didn't get to take. I didn't say anything. She let the silence sit a minute before adding, but there are still paths ahead. That's when she told me about something I'd never considered, adult learner bridge programs. I know you think you're behind, she said, but the truth is, more people go back to school in their 20s and 30s than ever before. And they're focused. They know why they're there. I laughed a little. Yeah, because they paid for it themselves. Exactly. The next week was a blur of emails, phone calls, and pamphlets. Actual paper pamphlets, like it was 1998 again. I signed up for an open house at the community college 20 minutes away. I researched certification programs in diesel mechanics, HVAC repair, and even, briefly, mortuary science. Don't ask. I sat in the parking lot of the Adult Education Center 3 separate times before finally walking in on the 4th. It was weird, sitting in a room full of adults who looked tired and hopeful at the same time. Some had kids waiting in the lobby. Others wore uniforms from their day jobs. Everyone looked like they'd made peace with starting over. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt early, like maybe I'd gotten to the good part before I even knew it started. Marcus came by on Saturday. He brought beer, but I made him leave it in the truck. I wasn't drinking that week. Too much brain fog. Too many decisions ahead. Instead, we sat on the back steps with paper cups of lemonade, like two kids who got kicked out of a grown-up party. "So," he said, nudging me with his shoulder. "College boy?" I rolled my eyes. "I haven't even enrolled yet." "Still, feels different. You look less haunted." "That's reassuring." "No, seriously, you've been in a fog since your mom passed. And honestly, before that too, like you were stuck between gears." I looked down at my cup. "I think I've been angry for a long time." "At her?" I hesitated. "No, not exactly." "Then at what?" "At how things turned out. At the lie. At myself for not asking more questions. For being so quick to give up when the road got steep." Marcus nodded. "That's fair." Finding the money didn't just change my plans. It changed how I see the last 6 years. Every struggle, every sacrifice, I thought we were scraping by together, but she'd already decided I wasn't going. Maybe she was trying to protect you. Maybe. But from what? Hope? He didn't have an answer. We sat in silence until the sun dipped low and the crickets started their shift. That night I had a dream I was back in my graduation gown. Except this time, I was alone on the stage. No audience, no music, just a single folding chair in the middle of a gymnasium and that envelope sitting on top of it. I walked up, picked it up, and inside was just one note. "If you're reading this, it's still not too late. Love, Mom." I woke up before I could figure out whether I believed her. By the end of the month, I'd enrolled in a 2-year program for heavy equipment maintenance with an option to specialize in hybrid vehicle systems. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Ivy League, but it was mine. I took the envelope to the bank and sat with a teller named Veronica, who didn't flinch when I slid it across the counter. "That's a lot of cash," she said, eyebrows raised. I nodded. "Rainy day fund." She gave a knowing smile. "Big storm?" "No," I said. "Just a really long drizzle." Back home, I put the empty envelope back in the lockbox, slid the Polaroid of me in my cap and gown on top of it, closed the lid. Then I pulled the Ziploc bag back out of my wallet and taped it to my fridge. It looked ridiculous, but it made me smile every time I saw it. 20 cents. The cost of a dream deferred. The price of a coffee I never had. The beginning of something I couldn't yet name. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my aunt, not Marcus, not even the lady at the front desk of the education center. That I cried on my first day of class. Not big tears, not dramatic sobs, just this slow, hot sting behind my eyes when I sat down in the back of a classroom for the first time in 7 years and realized I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like I'd come home to a version of myself I thought was dead and buried under years of overtime shifts, bad breaks, and quiet shame. My first class was Intro to Automotive Electrical Systems. 12 students, 2 instructors, 1 overheated projector. Most of us were between 25 and 35, a couple older. One guy had just turned 40 and brought donuts for everyone to celebrate. The instructor was a stocky guy named Deshaun, ex-military, who wore steel-toe boots like they were a part of his anatomy and told us on day 1, "This class is about wiring, not whining. If you can't handle either, there's the door." But when he showed us how to build a circuit board using nothing but a battery, a light bulb, and 3 pieces of wire, his whole face lit up like a proud dad at a science fair, and I knew, right then, I'd made the right call. 2 weeks in, I got my first A on a quiz. It was dumb, a basic test on voltage, resistance, and current flow, but I folded that paper in half, slid it into the side pocket of my backpack, and carried it around like a passport. That night, I pulled out Mom's planner, flipped to a random page, July 2009. $40. Overtime, cleaning job. $10, tucked away before Julian notices. In the corner, She'd doodled a little graduation cap. I smiled, closed the book, and put it back in the lockbox. Then I went to the fridge, looked at the Ziploc bag with the 2 dimes, and whispered, "Hey, I passed." It sounds stupid now, talking to a plastic bag. But I swear the kitchen felt warmer for a second. A month later, Mrs. Landry emailed me again. Subject line, "Just checking in." She wanted to know how it was going. Not because she had to, but because, and she wrote this, "You're the kind of student I never stopped rooting for." I wrote back that night, told her about the program, about the circuits, about the donut guy. Told her about Deshaun, about the A on the quiz, about the smell of oil on my hands that didn't make me feel like a failure anymore. She responded with one line, "I think your mom would be really proud, and I'm proud too." I didn't respond right away, not because I didn't want to, because I didn't know how to say thank you in a way that felt big enough. I started bringing my lunch to class in the same kind of brown paper bags Mom used to pack for me in high school. Not for nostalgia, just because it was cheap and easy. But one day, I threw in an old sticky note from her planner just to see if it would make me smile during break. It did. The next week, I added another. By October, I was eating next to a guy named Kev who worked part-time at a muffler shop and had 2 kids under 5. One day, he pointed at my bag and said, "What's with the notes?" I told him, "Just the basics." He nodded slowly. "That's cool, man. That's real cool." The next day, he handed me his sandwich, ham and mustard, no crusts. I looked at him. My kid made it, said I needed to share like preschool. We both cracked up. That sandwich was the best thing I'd eaten in weeks. One night in early November, I was digging through a drawer in the garage looking for a flashlight when I found an old box of photos Mom had stored in a plastic bin marked Merci. Inside were loose prints, ticket stubs, church bulletins, and one very specific photo. Me, age 10, sitting at a kitchen table surrounded by open textbooks and a bowl of cereal gone soggy. Mom was behind me, arms crossed, smiling like I'd just solved world hunger instead of long division. On the back, she'd written, "He asked too many questions. He'll go far." I stared at that photo for 10 minutes. Then I took it inside, taped it above my desk, and started studying for my midterm like my life depended on it. Because in some ways it did. Thanksgiving came fast. The house was quiet. No turkey, no yelling, no card games. Just me, some leftover chili, and a playlist of old R&B songs Mom used to hum while folding laundry. I set one extra place at the table. Not with food, just a Polaroid, a planner, and that Ziploc bag. Maybe that sounds sad to you. But for me, it felt like the first holiday I'd shown up as myself in a long, long time. I whispered a quiet thanks before eating. Didn't even need to explain it. Finals were brutal. 2 written, 1 hands-on. I messed up a starter motor diagnosis because I forgot to check the battery terminal first. Classic rookie mistake. Deshaun gave me a second chance. "You overthought it," he said. "Happens to people who care. Do it again and slower." I did. Passed. When he handed me my grade sheet, he clapped a hand on my shoulder and said, "Good work, Hart. Don't let that brain of yours talk you out of your hands." I wanted to frame that sentence. That night, I wrote my aunt. Told her about the semester, the grades, the goals. Told her I was thinking about using the rest of the money, what was left after tuition, to start saving for tools, maybe a small van. Long-term dream, mobile mechanic service. Her response came fast. "Your mom always said you had gold in your fingers. I'm just glad you finally stopped hiding them." That hit hard, in a good way. So here I am, 4 months into a life I never thought I'd get to live. I still wake up some mornings waiting for the other shoe to drop. Still wonder if it's okay to be happy this late in the game. But then I see that photo, or the Ziploc bag, or the planner with her check marks and grocery lists and quiet math. And I remember, she never gave up on me. She just couldn't say it out loud. Maybe she didn't have the words. But she left a message anyway, in bills, in notes, in 20 quiet cents taped to the future. The first letter came in mid-January. Plain envelope, no return address. Just my name and handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a folded card. Cheap stock, probably gas station stationery, with a single sentence in block print. She told me you'd find it when you were ready. That was it. No signature, no context, nothing else. At first, I thought it was a prank. Then I thought maybe someone from Mom's past, church friends, maybe a neighbor, was trying to say something kind in a weird way. But it stuck with me. Because I hadn't told anyone outside of Marcus, my aunt, and Mrs. Landry about the envelope. I hadn't posted about it online, hadn't mentioned it at school. Not even the bank teller knew what it really was. So how would anyone else? The next day, I went digging. I opened up Mom's old address book, the one she kept by the landline she refused to get rid of. Most of the names had landlines too, crossed out over the years with notes like moved, deceased, no answer. But there was one name that stood out. Greta, Bakery. Under it, in small letters, Rainy Day Angel. Greta ran the corner bakery 2 blocks from the duplex where we used to live. I hadn't stepped foot in there since I was 16, but I remembered the smell. Warm yeast, vanilla, cinnamon glaze. The kind of comfort you don't notice until it's gone. I walked there after class the next day. It was early, barely 4 p.m., and the place was almost empty except for one guy nursing a coffee and a toddler licking a cupcake with her entire face. Behind the counter was a woman with short silver hair, arms covered in flour dust, humming something under her breath. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, are you Greta?" She looked up, squinted. "Depends who's asking." "I'm Julian Hart, Tina's son." She blinked once, then her whole face softened. "Well, I'll be damned," she whispered. "You found it." We sat in the corner booth, same one I used to sit in with Mom on Sunday mornings when we could afford one pastry to split and a free refill of black coffee. Greta brought me a cinnamon twist on the house. "I always wondered if you'd come," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "She told me not to say anything, said it had to be your choice." "You knew about the money?" Greta nodded. "I helped her hide some of it. Not much, just the first few thousand. She didn't want to keep it all in one place. Said she didn't trust banks. Said the house might get broken into." I tried to picture Mom sneaking around with envelopes of cash like a spy. It almost made me laugh. "She used to come in here every other Friday," Greta continued. "Buy a day-old muffin, nurse it like a baby. She'd tell me how many hours she picked up, how much closer she was." "Closer to what?" Greta looked me straight in the eye. "To giving you a shot at anything." That night, I checked the envelope again. Not the money. That was already allocated, tracked, responsibly managed. I mean, the actual envelope. The paper. In the corner, inside the flap, was a faint pencil mark I hadn't noticed before. If Jay ever finds this, he was always worth it. It took me a long time to stop staring at that line, because for most of my adult life, I thought I wasn't worth the risk, wasn't worth the debt, wasn't worth the conversation. But now I had 28,000 reasons to believe I'd been wrong. By spring, I was halfway through my program. I was top of the class in diagnostics, second in engine theory, still struggling with computer systems. Those would always be my Achilles heel. But I had a plan, and I had backup. Marcus even asked if I'd consider coming on part-time over the summer. Said his team could use someone who didn't flinch around broken compressors. "I'll pay you under the table for now," he joked, "just like your mom's old boss." The next day I printed a business card. Just one. Julian Hart, mobile mechanic in training. Honest work. No shortcuts, no surprises. I stuck it in my wallet next to the Ziploc bag, a reminder of where I started and where I was headed. Aunt Marie stopped by a few weeks later with a box of old books and a bag of my mom's costume jewelry. "I figured you'd want these," she said. I didn't have the heart to toss anything. We sat at the kitchen table, flipping through paperbacks with cracked spines and notes in the margins. In the middle of a worn-out cookbook, we found a yellow sticky note that said, "The best recipes, use what you already have." My aunt looked at me. "That's your mother, all right." I smiled. Yeah, she always believed in leftovers. Graduation wasn't a big event. No caps, no gowns, just a sheet of paper, a handshake from Deshawn, and a class photo in front of the shop with grease stains on half our shirts. I didn't care. I drove home with the certificate on the passenger seat and the radio off, just listening to the road hum under the tires. When I pulled into the driveway, I parked and just sat for a minute. Then I got out, walked inside, and went straight to the lockbox. I opened it one last time, took out the planner, the photo, the envelope, now soft and creased with time. I added one more thing, a folded copy of my certificate with a sticky note that read, "Spent wisely, thank you." Then I closed the lid. I still carry the 20 cents, even now. Not because I think I'll ever spend it, but because it reminds me that love doesn't always come in words or hugs or long conversations. Sometimes it comes in paper envelopes and penciled math, in cinnamon twists and secret bankless savings, in Ziploc bags taped to the back of picture frames. It took me years to realize my mother hadn't given up on me. She just gave me time. And now I live every day like I owe her change. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.